Good morning.
Good morning, all. It is July 11th and 2021, and our topic today is your commitment greater than your resistance? And the resistance we're talking about is the resistance to your calling, to your soul's calling. I'm going to begin with a reading, but that we resonated with because of our personal experience this week. And it's by Ernest Holmes, and it's called I Am Supplied from the Substance of God. Substance means that um, energy stuff that is before physical form. That is how God creates everything. So that's substance with a capital S. And our Bible quote is from James 1:11. Every good gift cometh down from the Father. So Ernest Holmes says we all have need of many things. We cannot believe that the divine spirit wishes to withhold any good from us. It is the nature of God to give, and it is our nature to receive. Back of every idea of supply, every need in our human lives, there's something that forever gives more of itself and takes the form of our experiences when we permit it to. Whether it be a house to live in, money that we have need of, or employment that furnishes the gratification of adequate self expression, always there is the giver flowing into these things. But the divine has already given its entire being to us. God has not failed humanity, but humanity has failed to accept the gift. It has, uh, sorry, lost my place. uh, it has failed to enter into the spirit and the nature of the giver. It has even refused to believe that there is such a gift or such a giver. How then can even God give us what we refuse to accept? This is why Jesus told us we must believe that we have really received the gift before we see its evidence. This is active faith, but it should be a faith built on the sure knowledge that certain foundation, the positive conviction that there is something that responds to us gladly, readily, willingly, joyously, and without limit. So the prayer is, and I invite you to say it with me to yourself. Today I am living in the quiet and joyous expression of good. God is not only my life, He is substance taking form in everything I do. God is not only the only actor, He is acting through me now. God is not only the only giver, He is also the gift. This gift I receive in joy, with gratitude, and with a complete sense of security. I expect everything I do to prosper. I expect new and wonderful experiences to come to me. I am living in complete confidence that the kingdom of heaven is here and now, and that I am prospered in everything I do. And so
Beautiful.
it is.
Beautiful.
So, as I said, this title of Is Your Commitment to Your Calling Greater Than Your Resistance? And it's easy to resist a calling because it is so nebulous. In other words, I believe that we all came here
On purpose.
as a soul on purpose with a mission of something to experience, be, do, or have this lifetime. The only problem is we forget. We forget. We may know it initially, but it's very foggy by the time we're adult and we're moving our way out into the world and trying to figure out what we're doing here and what our purpose is. But it's kind of a nagging pull, a nagging pull in a certain direction that may not even make any sense to you, given your situation. But it keeps nagging and it keeps pulling, and it's hard to deny and it's hard to explain. And that's why your resistance can be so great to it, because um, it's hard to explain and it's not even always rational or the thing that makes them best sense. Now we often hear of this calling in regard to ministry. Everybody hears that you have a calling to ministry. You're called to minister to others. But there are lots of callings and lots of ways to do service in the world to our fellow human beings and to our planet without being ministers. And so many people are just have an urge, a longing to move in that direction. And so we want to talk today about all the things that can cause the resistance and how to increase your commitment.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that before that, even a long time ago, we had generally when you went to college, you had to take a lot of liberal arts courses, and the reason you had to take liberal arts courses was to round out your education to inform you in relationship to the world.
History, the
Yeah,
history
and so
and the
what
literature.
we've seen more recently in schools and academic settings, and it really shows, are people who get a college education with a specific goal in mind, and the only courses they take are related to that goal. So their English may be very poor, their writing skills may be very poor, their history is very poor, their understanding of government and how it works is very, very poor. So you begin to see that if when we know what we're here for, and that's all we know, that may be all we get to know. And when we're here and we forget what we're here to be here for, we are open to a lot more learning than we might be otherwise. So I suspect one of the reasons that we forget our calling fairly early on is because there's a lot of things we need we need to build an infrastructure that
Mm-hmm.
goes with our calling. And I think that's an important piece because for me, I've always been confused, as I'm sure many of you have been, about how is it that we're here on purpose? We have a reason, we have something we're supposed to do, but we don't remember what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, the sense
That
that,
seems like a bad trick, doesn't
yeah,
it?
really. So, and the possibility is that you won't figure it all out until it's all over, you know. So, but
Yeah.
but I think also we're multi-purpose beings. Whatever we think it is we're here to do, we're also here to have a full life experience and to experience ourselves in every moment as entirely and as positively as we possibly can. I want to go to my own experience this week, and one of the reasons that I was curious about this particular topic and wanted to explore it. When COVID started, we didn't have vaccinations available, and I was working in the hospital, and I was working in real close contact with a lot of people who weren't wearing masks and who were sick. And Judith insisted that I not do that any longer. So I said, okay, and I left the job. And that's been good. For the last year, I've been able to make a lot of artwork and do a lot of writing, and it's felt restless now recently. It's time to get back to work. I want to do something to serve, and I have a calling. And so I thought I've got to. So I began applying for jobs. Now, I don't know if any of you have applied for a job if you're over 50, but if you're over 50, then there's a special wastebasket for your resume. And they look
It's a
at,
big round
right,
pile.
right. What they don't, it's against the law to ask how old you are. So they ask when you graduated from high school. And if it was in the 50s, or, you know, your resume goes into that very special file and it never gets called out. So, and why I'm sharing this with you is because I decided I was committed to getting another job where I could be of service. What was the resistance? I knew that age was going to be an issue. So I sent out one application after another. And the more applications I sent out and the less response that I got, the more I had a story, which would be the resistance. And the story that I had was they don't hire people your age. Looks like I'm never going to get a job, even though I'd like to have another job right now. It'd be kind of fun to do. Not going to happen. And then I meditated. I don't know if any of you have done that or not, but I usually meditate when things get bad. In desperation meditation. And so I'm meditating. I'm thinking, I've got to get a job. I need something that I can do that feels useful and service. And I got very clearly, stop it. The job will come to you. I said, yeah, thanks. Appreciate that. I've sent out 100 resumes and I've gotten back no responses, and the job will come to me. Now, but what's important in this is my desire to have this work for me was greater than my resistance, which would be the story I have about why it won't work. And so I continued and I continued. In fact, I saw a job that the county listed that I knew I didn't want and probably couldn't do. And there was an urging that said, send the application. So I sent the application, I filled out the application, and they called me in for an interview. And they listed all of these things. And they said, can you do any of these? I said, not really. That's not what I do. Well, the HR person called me in because she said, we have another position we haven't posted that we think would be ideal for you. We'd like to give that to you if you'd like it. And so the gift of the job I was looking for, which is a crisis team member to go out into the community mobile crisis team, is something I'm good at. I love to do. I've done it for years, and I got all excited. I thought, oh my God, the perfect job for me to do, where I can be of service. But I had to be willing to say yes to my desire and the belief, the faith that it would work out, as opposed to the story that I was making up at the same time, which is there's no way this can work. So anyway, I start late next week, and it should be an adventure. It's going to be a safari.
Yeah, that was really interesting. And he told me when he got that message about um, the job would, why are you stressing yourself? Let the job come to you. And it's so hard to trust those messages, it's like, because you want to figure out how could that possibly be? And I don't have the patience to sit around and wait. I need to be doing something,
Right.
And in fact, he did continue. But what was interesting is that it circled around and came to him anyway. So,
Interestingly, we were watching a nature program yesterday, and crocodiles, the way they feed is they don't go after animals. They don't go after their prey. They wait for the prey to come to them.
mm,
And that's amazing. I mean, they're big, they're strong, they're powerful. They simply wait. And inevitably, an animal comes up and lands on them or near them, and that's when dinner's served.
so I have a quote here by Reverend Scott Aubrey. And he says this, and I know some of you have your own callings. I know what some of them are, and they are worthy callings. So he says, giving ourselves completely to that which is calling is true commitment territory. The promise is made by selflessness, authenticated by action, and fulfilled by an inspired design for living. And I think it really is sacred because it usually does involve some selflessness and serving others. And so I just want to salute all of you that I know pursue yours and congratulate you for knowing what it is. And I think that's most of you here, frankly. Um, and it feels right when you're doing it. I was called to ministry. I think from my first science of mind class, I just thought, oh, because I had such wonderful demonstrations my first year in health, my son's health, everything. And I just thought, wow, this is powerful. I want to teach this to the world. And so I just one after another took all the classes required. It took 4 years. And about that time I was I was then a minister, a licensed minister. Uh, Suddenly my family situation and financial situation totally changed. And my teacher minister said, well, so you go out and start a work. And I said, what does that mean? What do you mean? Well, you just go start a work, start offering classes, find a place to speak on Sundays. And I thought, and how will I support myself? Well, that takes faith. I didn't have that faith at that time. And we had to be like 22 miles away from our home church, which was where I lived. And I wasn't willing to move 22 miles away either. So um, I pursued psychology because I thought, well, that will help me. I just really had a sense that ministry was my call. And I knew that I didn't know enough about counseling people. And he had already told me that I didn't. There were some he wouldn't let me see because he thought I wasn't trained enough. And I wasn't. I wasn't. So I thought, well, at least with psychology, I can support myself. But it is a calling, and callings have a way of coming back to you.
Mm.
So and not letting you alone. So after 13 years of doing psychotherapy and being in that field, uh, there was a group of people who their church had gone independent and they wanted to stay within our organization, and they wanted a minister. And I had just finished my training for a second time. And so they called me. It just works like that without you
Mhm.
doing anything. When you become available and willing. And so I have a few more quotes that I think are appropriate here. Goethe, Goethe, the German, it's spelled Goethe, but it's pronounced Goethe, the philosopher. He said, until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. The moment one definitely commits oneself, the providence moves too. So he's saying once you decide something and commit to it, then all things come together to help fulfill that.
Having been an audiophile most of my life, you look at resistance, and if you look at resistance from an electronics perspective, resistance is the measure of heat that's generated as the current is moving through the wire and is having difficulty getting through it. And if you want to delete the resistance or improve the flow, you increase the diameter of the wire. And so very often we have a very thin wire to our dreams, hopes, and desires.
Mhm.
And what we are afraid to do is to develop a thicker or heavier or bigger wire for fear that it will be the wrong thing or that it won't work out for us. And people will say, wow, you have this huge cable and I don't see how that could possibly work. And so what you do is you hook up the largest cable that you can to support the level of quality that you want to receive, as opposed to, well, I'll send out a feeler and see if it works. I'll put a couple of wires in and see if, and what happens, of course, is what you notice immediately is the heat of the resistance, because the truth is you're not really committed. A trial balloon is not the same as one that's sent up to celebrate, to recognize and appreciate one's own desire.
Right. Ernest Holmes refers to that resistance as pain,
Mm.
when in regard to whatever your calling is. And he says the language of resistance is pain. But non resistance finds the harmony of the universe and swings into its motion, going with the stream of power which nourishes and protects. Resistance is the offspring of fear and ignorance. Non resistance is the offspring of love. And that's from the Science of Mind book. And so again, we get back to all is love or all is fear from A Course in Miracles.
Mhm.
We're either feeling love or we're feeling fear. And as human beings, we're taught and we experience there's lots to fear.
We often don't think that we're dealing with fear because we avoid a situation in which the fear would be realized.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so the fear is sort of like a quiet headache beneath the surface that we're fighting off. And we become so accustomed to fighting it off that we don't even notice it's there anymore. So an awful lot of our behavior is really not choice behavior. That is, we're not choosing to move in the direction we want to go. We're choosing to move in a direction that we hope won't hurt us, or it will help us to avoid pain. And so moving forward with your goal to avoid bad things happening is not the same as moving forward with your goal because you believe so much in that goal and are so supported at multiple levels in consciousness by that goal that you just can't see yourself doing anything else.
Yeah, and so it's important to notice how you feel with whatever you're doing or in whatever direction you're going. How am I feeling about this? I think it's interesting that with the pandemic, so many people got to stay home and work and not do that commute. The young people that were doing big commutes in traffic and working in little cubicles, a lot of them have decided they are not going back to that.
Mhm.
They had enough distance to go, that's no way to live. I don't want to do that again. And sometimes they don't even know what they want to do, but they're paying more attention to what yeah, well, they're paying attention to what a trap that can be, what a treadmill that can be, that you get on the treadmill and you don't know how to get off. You just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And so they're really, many of them pursuing their dreams and going in the direction of their calling. And they don't know if it'll work out or not, and it may not.
So this might be a good time to clarify your dreams. And one of the ways that I use to clarify my dream is I say, if there were no reason that I couldn't do what I want to do, what would that be? If nothing were stopping me from being a success and I knew that no matter what I did, it would work, what would I do? I think we often walk through this kind of minefield without realizing that we're actually being guided by where the minds are rather than where our mind is. And so we really need to pay attention to what is it I desire. And if what comes up immediately is, oh, then you need to set that aside and ask yourself the bigger question. What if that were handled? What if that which is God that is in me and in you and in all of us is bigger than the problem, is
Mhm.
greater in strength, possibility, and power than anything we've ever imagined? If that's true, then why would I settle for anything less than a spectacular and wonderful win?
And wants to give me my dreams and desires.
Yeah.
Wants to is our the gift has already been given. And so if we could accept that instead of fearing the lack, we're just more open to receive. Someone when I was teaching this law of mind, which means that what we think and believe and feel, especially what we feel intensely, manifests. And that's how God operates. A person who was a former nun actually said to me, Where's the love? And I said, the love is in the gift. The gift that you have all creativity at your fingertips with the power of your mind, with what you think, believe, accept, and expect with strong feeling.
Another question to ask yourself too is if I were unlimited in my resources, and I don't mean resources in terms of just money or the people that I know, but very often we need to step into an arena in which we know we're not fully equipped.
Hmm. Hmm.
But how we are equipped is we have the connection that we need to gather the data that we need. You know, now because of computers, we're watching a movie and Judith will say, has that actor been in something else? I can pull up my laptop or pull up my
iPad.
iPad, type in the name, and find out within seconds every movie that that person's been in the last 10 years. What if God were really a sophisticated iPad and all you really have to do is type in the problem and there'll be 50 solutions. They're all there. Now, you don't have to get them consciously to know that they're there. Now, the interesting thing is when Judith says to me, I've seen that actor before, she already knows what she has asked. She already has the answer. The iPad simply clarifies. Yeah.
That's great. There's one other point I want to make, and that is be careful in this path because this path, when you have a calling, is often very circuitous, zigzaggy, and it's easy to call certain things that seem not to work out as failures. So I would urge you to avoid using that word failure
Mhm.
because it's often just a movement along the path to get you to your true calling. And so be careful as you review your life and say what worked and what didn't work, because I suspect no matter, even if it looked like failure, you're still on the calling and it moved you in that direction.
That's an interesting observation. I think back of a lot of different things that have happened in my life where I decided I wanted to do something. I really did. I had a strong desire. The first two and possibly even three responses to that were false starts. That is, they weren't capable of being they weren't capable of fulfilling me or fulfilling the project. They were indicators as I look back that I was on the right path and I hadn't yet reached the right person. The first
Mhm,
person that would
mhm,
respond would be the one who wanted it to go easy, and I would be the person with a desire who wanted it to go easy also.
mhm,
And so it
mhm,
would almost
mhm.
be, you could say the persons that responded to my desire were the ones who had the same level of awareness that I had, which was, well, I want to have this happen. Let's make it happen quick. So somebody would say, Bob, I'd like to do something quick. And I was, how is this really going to work? So tell me about your experience. I don't have any. Oh, I see. Just want something quick. Yes. And then the second one and the third one. And all of a sudden, because I persisted, not all of a sudden, actually, what would happen was it would seem all of a sudden the right person, the right opportunity, the right circumstance would show up.
All right. And if you insist on calling something a failure, it can really
Yeah.
demoralize you. You know, and we think one of the biggest business successes ever in the history of the world probably is Disney World. And Walt Disney went bankrupt 12 times. So, you know, but if he had let any of those bankruptcies, if he gave it the meaning that I'm a
Mhm.
failure and I should not be doing this, he would have stopped.
Yeah, that's why I stopped calling the end of my first marriage a failure
Right,
and looked
right.
at it as an internship.
Absolutely.
And it really was an internship because I don't know about any of you, but a lot of times the first time you get married, you're not smart enough, mature enough, or old enough to know what you're doing.
Or choosing who you
Yeah,
should be with.
and so, you make a lot of bad choices, and it's an opportunity to learn. It really is an internship if you have somebody that's, and I had a wonderful internship partner for that process, not for the marriage that I have now, have had for the last 34 years, but certainly for that time in my life, it was perfect.
So let's wind this up with a closing prayer. So if you'd like to, those of you watching, you may go within and let's know and acknowledge and give thanks for the one power, the one presence, the one love of the universe that is the creator of all, that is the substance of all form, that is always giving. And we receive gratefully and gladly and give thanks for understanding that all form is created by this creator, and that we may materialize and experience and manifest our goals, our dreams as we follow our calling. We give thanks for having this faith, for having this joy in the unseen and this expectancy of good. We know it's always available to us, and we choose to stay out of fear and stay in love. We love ourselves, we love each other, and we love our Creator.
And so it
And
is.
so it is.
So before we leave you from the recording piece of it, I just want to let you all know that we are a not-for-profit Center for Spiritual Living. We do have a website. We really do appreciate your donations, and particularly at this time where we're looking at how we can grow and how we can sustain. So your gifts are really, really important. And if you didn't know that, please know that. We have a piece of music that we'd like to share with you, and we're going to share with you as soon as we get off the air.
No, stop recording rather.